James Davis with the Kitsap Economic Development Alliance. And today, as he just mentioned, we're going to be talking about the government impact on our county, both in government contracting, the federal impact from the money that's being spent, and just a little bit about the demographics of our county so you can understand some of the economics of Kitsap and how important our federal government is to our economy. So to kick us off, we're actually going to I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Elizabeth Court, who's going to talk a little bit about some of this initial click. There's that thing too. Oh, that's cool.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
all right. There's a cheat screen over here, you guys. But all right, take it away, Elizabeth.
Thanks, James. It's really great to see everyone here. I have to say that I have learned so much, and I've really enjoyed listening to all the acronyms that I've been needing to learn about. I thought, oh, is this Star Wars? And then I did hear CYA, even though I think there's a lot of about this conference that's kind of all about. Anyway, so again, my name is Elizabeth Court. I'm the Economic Development Principal for Kitsap Economic Development Alliance, and we've got about 16 slides. We're going to go through them pretty quickly, and so let's get started. Oh, back. Here we go. All right, so our presentation today, we're going to talk a little bit about the big picture, some great stories about Kitsap and its competitive advantage, our defense economy here, procurement, jobs, and spending, some additional impacts of the shutdown, and then also we're going to divide this in half, and James is going to be talking a lot about SIOP. All right, so just for all of you that don't recall your Econ 101 class, I just would like everyone to think about how they got here. Do they drive? So they were on the road, which is supported by the government. Then they get paid. Then they go buy things from shops. So again, we've got this mixed capitalist economy here, and obviously different communities have different balances of each of these. And in Kitsap, of course, we're very government and defense dependent. Okay, so two of the key factors that drive our economy are the defense spending, as we're going to dive into a little bit more here, and then our location to the very, very vibrant I-5 corridor, Snohomish County, King County, Pierce County, firms like Boeing, obviously Microsoft and the tech industry that's grown up in the last 30 years. So lots going on in Kitsap, and of course we've got our beautiful environment here as well that draws people to the county. Okay, as you can see, the Naval Base Kitsap is involving many different areas. We've got the sub base here, and then also Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, and also actually a component of this base up in Alaska. And I do want to mention with the map up here that we should recognize that when you, of course, look at the globe, and we know that the importance of the Arctic grows every year, and we are sort of on the, if you're getting there, we're one of the best places if you need to get up to the Arctic quickly. We've got infrastructure here, but you can go across the skinny part of the Earth and go north. Okay, a few more comments about Kitsap. We are, there are 39 counties in Washington State. We are one of the smallest, but we are the third most densely populated. And you don't really sense that when you're here. It feels very rural, but we have the same population density of Clark and King County. And that number, so King County has about 10 times more people than we do, and that number is going to come up again as we go into these numbers. Okay. All right. So a few more little demographic factoids. Pretty educated population here, pretty good high school graduation rate, and we've got a mix of white collar to technical workers, about 70-30. But you can see there that the government sector for we're not considered a rural county, for a non-rural county, we have a pretty high government sector. As you probably know, that if you go to more rural counties, they tend to have higher proportion. If you say Jefferson County, which is right across the bridge, has about 40% of its workers are with local, state, or federal government. Okay, and then a few more comments here, moving ahead. And after this slide, I'm going to turn it over to James. But just if you can recall the number I said about the population of King County is over 2 million, and Kitsap County is just about 280,000. So if you do the proportions and do the math in your head, you can see that per capita, we get almost twice as much federal funding and defense funding as our neighbor to the east, King County. All right, so James, turning it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk a little bit about defense procurement and states. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, I don't understand this slide.
So,
okay.
Okay, so just really quickly, as I said, there are 39 counties in Washington State, and this does say counties, so that's my error. It should say areas within counties. So you can just see the highlight in red means that there's more funding. And if you look in through the Salish Sea where Kitsap County is located, you can see the darker color there. So thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries, no worries. So really, what does this mean, right? We've got a federal workforce here that is outsized, by many, this outsizes by other counties by quite a bit. We've got 39,440 that are just associated with the local naval base. And then when you add in other federal organizations, that number increases by about 5,000 additional employees. And that creates a pretty significant multiplier in terms of impact on our economy. As Elizabeth has annotated here, there's essentially about 20,000 jobs that are not related to federal work, but that are tied to federal work, if that makes sense. So if you think about the sandwich shop down the road, or if you think about different spaces where you've got office spaces for lease, or different services that are like automotive services, other things that are tied to the spending that happens in this economy, you can attribute close to 20,000 jobs to being related to the federal workforce dollars that are brought into our community. One of the reasons why this is so important in this moment is during this federal shutdown, right? If you were to nix all of the federal money coming in, all the federal dollars coming into this economy, so none of the federal workers are getting paychecks, and this is inclusive of military. Military is currently getting paid, but there is very good potential that they may not get paid here in the future. That actually nixes out about $78 million of cash that's circulating in our economy per week. So every week we lose $78 million circulating in our economy. And that, you can see, could easily flow down to some of these other jobs, other employment, other areas of business that are happening here in Kitsap County. So that's one important thing to consider. The sectors that are impacted, there's, if you can think of it, like there's an entire ecosystem here, right? We've got an outsized federal workforce. The federal workforce comes in, the average wage for the federal workforce is $87,000. And so when you think about those wages and how they get spent in the economy, they get spent in a number of different places: business services, they go into our schools, they are paid, healthcare gets paid for, transportation initiatives. There's a number of different things that are entangled with this federal spending. And I jumped slides, go figure. And I think when we were calculating this earlier, we were calculating it on a smaller amount, but the actual effect is about $10 million per day. Currently, it's 3.5 million just based on the civilian workforce that's not getting paid. If you add in the military workforce, then it goes up to 10 million. There's another thing that we should talk about, even beyond the government shutdown. SIOP is going to be driving economic prosperity. It's going to be driving economic activity here in Kitsap County for the next several years, decades, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. It's a once-in-a-lifetime shipyard upgrade. As Elizabeth alluded to earlier, it's one of the most It's one of the most strategic places to have a naval base within a closed sea where it's relatively protected. Its proximity to certain strategic assets is essential. So they're investing a lot of money. There have been several estimates over the last several years about how much money this is actually going to be. And to give you an idea about how much this could be, initially SIOP was allocated to be about $8 billion for Kitsap, and then they released 2 multiple award construction contracts that were more inclusive. One was for $9 billion, and one of them was for $1 billion. So, and they've also readily admitted that this is not going to fully encompass what needs to be done. They have under budgeted for a lot of these projects. So there's going to be a lot of money spent here over the next few years. And actually, we're kind of starting to see some of these awards being made. We had $377 million retrofit, additional seismic I'm missing on the word, but we had a retrofit, right? Okay, sorry. Yeah, you know, I was just talking about coffee right before I came up here. But there is a they just awarded that to Kiewit Alberti. It's $377 million. They awarded an $18.4 million contract as well, and then also one that got them in right here. They've got an infrastructure grid project that was $142 million that they just awarded as well. I was trying to figure out, what do you remember what that 18.4 one was? Okay. Needless to say, we're only in the beginning. This is the beginning phases, and we're already at about $500 million worth of contracts that have been awarded. And this is not even 2026 yet. So there's going to be a huge demand. Every single one of those projects is going to require CMMC, just so you're aware. There are some of it. So there was a The analog that has often been referred to as the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, which had a specific project that was $2.2 billion cost to complete. What we're understanding is that is not going to be enough to complete that project. Yeah, I apologize, guys. So I do need my coffee one of these days. I'd love to answer some questions, especially about the government shutdown, with regard to SIOP spending, or with regard to some of the economic impacts that happening with the shutdown and with our currently projected government spending. So, were there any questions?
Oh, yeah, there's one back there. Hold on a second.
So it's my understanding there's a significant number of influx of workers and people that have to come in to participate in keeping SIOP. We're also apparently now getting assigned a new aircraft carrier that can't yet dock, that will be homeboarded here. With all of this influx of people, like, how does the military help us contribute to the housing problem that's creating for us with the people that are coming specifically for that?
I think that's a great question. We've been working with naval representatives on exploring how they approve different stipends especially for military, because right now, as some of you may be aware, the stipend that they do approve does not match the market. So when they come in, they're actually having to spend a lot more than on housing than they would be getting from their stipend. So we're trying to work with them to help them understand the actual cost of expense for housing here, and then also, the Navy has been at the table in a number of different conversations with regard to development, but they don't actually develop housing themselves. So I think some infrastructure improvements may come along, but it's not that they're actually, the Navy is funding those. It's just that they are part of the need.
If I can
Yeah, go ahead.
add to that, one of the issues as far as counting the numbers of individuals who are coming here is how many of them are contractors who will eventually go back to Virginia or North Carolina, where they're coming from. So we are getting inquiries about individuals wanting to develop temporary housing or situations like the travel nurses would use. So there seems to be some more chatter about that. And just along those lines, just from a data collection standpoint, when those individuals are coming and working here, they are not counted. So if the company is based in Virginia and they're coming out here and there's maybe 60, 100, 200 people, that number is actually pretty impactful considering our relatively small population, but those individuals will not be counted in the typical BLS data. So that it makes it a little bit harder to track and find that situation. But I would say I remember when Everett, Naval Base Everett started getting built up in the 80s and 90s, and there was a big rush to, there's a lot of interest from developers up there to build more. So there's a sense of that. It's not, I would not say it's in the same category. That was a brand new situation. I mean, it wasn't brand new, but it was such a huge expansion as opposed to a retrofit sort of situation. So, but I think it's a good question. I'm going to add one more thing. I was in Juneau recently, and they are getting some new military type situation up there. And the plan is to wait a number of years until the local community builds more housing because it's just such a big deal. So that's a really important topic.
And just to what Elizabeth had said, like you were saying earlier, we can quantify some of the incoming military, but we can't necessarily quantify the contractors or the sheer demand that's going to be created by them. However, there are a lot of developers that are doing forecasting, and they've been in touch with us for specific data, and they obviously see the need. We see housing developments being built up and down and all around, frankly, in Silverdale and in Poulsbo and Bremerton. So these are the demand side of things. The developers are paying very close attention to that because, frankly, it's a big investment for them. Other questions?
Okay.
Thank you so much. This was really fun to be here. I learned so much, and it was great to share a little bit about Kitsap County.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all for having us.
Yeah, thank you.